Hello, I'm Jay, owner of Volunteer Audio in Oliver Springs, Tennessee. We're making a video to show you an add-on we have for the new Soundstream Reserve HDHU14+. So this thing has an excellent amplifier inside of it, and there are a lot of people that are going to be satisfied with the amount of power it has. With the right speakers, you can hear it clearly while traveling down the highway, which is something you can't do with your stock radio and stock speakers. But then there's the people that want more. I'm one that always wants more, can't never get enough. So this particular kit we have here is going to make it loud enough that you can't hear the wind, you can't hear the motorcycle at 85 miles an hour. It's going to be way more than you need, but the beauty of that is you don't have to turn it all the way up. You have all that you desire, and by not turning it up all the time, all the way, you don't end up blowing things up. So the amp's going to last a long time, the speakers are going to last a long time, and we're going to warranty the amplifier for 3 years. Now let me tell you what we've got here, because we've done a lot of the hard work to make this as easy as possible, and in a few minutes we're going to show you exactly how to install it on a motorcycle. So we're working on a Road Glide, so this particular amp is going to come pre-mounted to a Road Glide bracket. This bracket is going to bolt underneath the stock radio or the Soundstream Reserve radio. In this case, it is made specifically for the Soundstream Reserve radio. We're going to have it pre-wired into the Soundstream Reserve harness along with the thumb control module plugs. So as you see, I've already moved our thumb control module. We're going to want to do this first. So if you've already put your radio in, take this module out first, put it in your amp before you start, so we don't want to accidentally plug up power without the module, or our thumb controls won't work. We've already installed an oxygen-free copper amplifier kit. This is our wiring kit that's going to run back to our battery. It is a Siamese cable, meaning it's power and ground of the same length. It also has a weatherproof motorcycle fuse holder with a mini wafer style bolt-in fuse. So we're doing this with the very best of components so vibration doesn't take it out over time. All of this is pre-assembled. So wiring is already done, just plug it in the radio, route this to the battery and hook it up, and you're finished. All the settings on the amplifier are already done. So we've set the high pass filters, we've set it for high level, we've set the gains with a DD1 specifically for this radio. So now if you install it to the Soundstream radio, definitely keep the loudness function off, because we've set our gains with loud off. It's going to give us the cleanest signal and the most output out of this amplifier. It's clean all the way to volume 50, so if you turn it all the way up, you're not going to clip your speakers and blow your speakers. So time to get to the bike. Stick with us and I'll show you exactly how easy it is to put on. Alright, so we have a Road Glide, Harley-Davidson Road Glide. This is the one we just did. If you watch our videos, just a couple videos ago, we installed a radio, the Soundstream HDHU14+, and a set of Hertz front speakers. It sounds great. This customer always wants more, he's like me. So he wanted us to add an amplifier. So I've already stripped the fairing off exactly like we did in the previous video. I'm not going to go over every step to remove the fairing. If you want to see how that was done, watch how to install the radio. It's one of the previous videos, probably 2 videos ago at this point. So watch how to get the fairing apart and start there. Get your radio bolted in, and then we'll get back to this point. So to do an amplifier, though, we need to run power and ground to our battery. So I'm going to get at it. I'm going to remove the seat and remove the gas tank. On this particular bike, there's a Phillips screw holding the seat in. Some have a thumb screw. It's normally one of the two. Let's remove that bolt first. All right, so next step, we're going to take the bolts out of the gas tank. You're going to have a 13mm bolt, 2 back here in the rear of the tank, and 1 on each side under some rubber covers. While you're already here, go ahead and take the 2 bolts out at the rear of the battery tray. So you're going to have to take this cover off to connect your power and ground to the battery. So go ahead and take those out while you got your tools out. All right, so on each side of the gas tank at the front, there are going to be little rubber covers. Take those off. Remove each bolt that's behind them. All right, so we took our bolts out of our gas tank. The next step, we need to release our quick disconnect fuel line. So I want to show you how easy this is to do. There's a little chrome sleeve normally. You just push up on that sleeve. That's going to release your fuel line. As soon as that fuel line comes out, it's going to quit leaking fuel. So it doesn't matter if your fuel tank's full, it's got a stop in there that stops fuel from coming out. So once you disconnect, you may get a few drops of fuel, so always have a rag ready so you don't let it go on your motor or your side cover. But there you go, easy enough. Next, we're going to take our gas tank off. All right, so next step, we're going to pull our vent line up from the fuel tank. Get where it's disconnected, there's another vent on the other side. It just pulls out of this plastic elbow, and then follow your sending unit for your fuel gauge back and unplug it. It's going to be the gray plug. At this point, we should be disconnected. We can lift our gas tank off. I want to take a second and talk about lights. If you've had neon lights installed, they most likely ran lights on the bottom of your gas tank. You need to find the disconnects and unplug those before you just lift your tank. We don't want you to mess your lights up. All right, so next we have this plastic backbone harness. We just want to take this cover off so we can get to the, I'm sorry, I said harness. We've got a plastic cover over our harness. So we want to take this off so we can get to that harness. There's little clips on each side. A small screwdriver just helps get those loose. There'll also be some Tessa tape from the factory that you can cut one side and just peel off like you saw me do. These handlebars back where I want them. All right, so just unclip the cover and take it off. That's going to expose all of our wiring. All right, so on this particular bike, it has some wiring from an old install that he was unhappy with, so we're going to remove that before we route our new wiring. All right, so we went ahead and removed the wiring from a previous install. Always, if you're going to do a fresh install, if there's any old wiring, definitely take it out, kind of clean it up. So next we're going to move to the front, pull the headlight, get our amp mounted, and then we'll route the wiring down this backbone, and I'll show you how to get the cover off and connect to the battery. All right, so next step, we're going to remove our headlight. You're going to find on a Road Glide that there's normally going to be a couple accessory plugs that are snapped into the top of the headlight. So we want to take those loose first. Then we're going to remove the 4 bolts. Now it's a 3/16 Allen. This is the same tool we used to put the bolts in our radio. It's the same tool we used to take our side marker lights or turn signals loose on the side. Now I want to point out something. We did install, in our last video we didn't show it. Somehow or another it got cut out. But there is a bracket that you transfer over to your Soundstream radio. It is on here. We don't leave any parts off. If you had a Street Glide, you would definitely put the bracket, the big metal plate, back on top of the radio, and all the provisions and holes are there for that as well. So we're going to remove the 2 top headlight bolts. Like I say, they're a 3/16 Allen head. We're going to have 2 more on the bottom to remove. Most of you have probably already taken your headlight out, upgraded to some form of LED light at some point, so this probably is pretty familiar. All right, unplug that. All right, so we are going to disconnect the wiring harness from the back of the radio. This was our Soundstream harness from our previous video. Just swing this tab over and unplug it. And then we're going to unplug the main harness that went into our T-harness. Now I've already removed the thumb control module because, like I said earlier in the video, I want to go ahead and plug that into our new amp harness first. So now we've made plenty of room. Our amp plate is going to slide right underneath this radio. Now to get to the side screws, sometimes they're bolts, sometimes they're screws, depending on the bracket. It's easier if you just go ahead and remove the side speaker pod. So I am going to go ahead and unplug each of the speaker pod connections. We'll remove a couple other connectors as we go and go and take these off. Same 3/16 Allen tool will remove the side pod. All right, so we're going to go ahead and remove the speaker pod. We're going to start with the 3/16 bolts at the top of the pod. 2 at the top, and then there'll be a couple down the side. You want to disconnect the stock USB from the top of the pod. Got a little clip that clips in. Let's follow down and see if we have any other harnessing on this one. I don't see any. Like I said, sometimes you can do this without removing these. I'm going to go ahead and remove them for ease of access to the bolts, and also to hopefully give you a better visual of how this amp bracket is going to bolt in. One last bolt. Now there are a lot of Torx bolts all over this pod. Don't take them out. If you do that, it takes the pod apart. No need to do that. I'll take this loose and set it aside. All right, I'm going to go ahead and repeat that process for the other side. All right, so we're ready to take our amp and put it under the radio. First, we're going to back all the radio bolts out. That's just going to make sure they don't hang down and get in the way of this amp bracket as it's being installed. You don't actually have to remove the radio, but you need to get the bolts out far enough that they clear the bracket. Once you get the amp in, just tighten all these back down. I'm going to go ahead and completely remove the back two and just loosen the front ones up so they're out of the way. Alright, so if you order this package from Volunteer Audio and you order it for a Road Glide, it's going to come on this specific Road Glide bracket. It's going to orientate with the rounded part to the front. The squared off portion is going to go toward the screen of the radio. We're already going to have the amp mounted on here. So you're just going to take the wiring, make sure you route it down both sides of the amp as you feed it in here. Make sure nothing gets cut or damaged. It's a pretty tight fit. All right, so we've got it in and into position. So I'm going to take and put the Phillips screws in the side now. All right, so normally we don't have this huge antenna somebody's added on here. You'll see there's a pre-cut out hole from the factory that we're going to be feeding this Phillips screw into. Drop that one, we'll get another one. All right. So you could do this with power tools. We're choosing to use all hand tools. As you see, we have all the different power tools available to use, but we just want to make sure nothing happens that would cause any scratching of anything, have any bolts break, something strip out. If you do it by hand, you can be a lot more careful. Right, you're going to want to start all the bolts and then come back and tighten them up. So I'm going to go to the other side and put those two in. All right, so we've got our 4 bolts started. I'm going to go back over and finish tightening them, make sure they're tightened all the way. Definitely don't want to leave these loose or they're going to vibrate out. Total of 4 of these, and here in a second we're going to tighten all those radio screws back down. All right, so we've got those tight. All right, so the amp plate is now mounted. We're going to go ahead and put the bolts back in the radio. Get all of those lined back up. Again, this is a very simple install. If you can put a headlight in and the radio in, you can definitely put this amp in as well. All the technical parts that you would need, like a distortion detector or a polarity checker. There's no need for a Techno Research flash tool because we're using an aftermarket radio. All the things that would make it difficult, you need a bunch of special tools for, we've already taken care of. So if you can purchase a few hand tools that you probably already have if you work on your bike, then you can get this done. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and put both our speaker pods back on, and we'll hop back in at the wiring point. All right, so it's time to connect our wiring from our amp to our radio. So every product that Volunteer Audio sells, we use. We use it first, we test it, we know if it's a good quality company, and listen, if it's not going to be good, we don't bring it in because we take care of our customers. We cover freight, we cover everything. If there is a problem, I'm not going to sell you some junk. But this harness was built by us, and as you know, we've already put this on a bike. You're watching it happen, and we build these to length. We document all of that, and we make sure it's correct for when you do it. So we're going to take the radio side harness, bring it up to the back, swing our lever over, and plug it in. We're also then going to have our stock harness here, plug it in. And as you see, everything is the proper length. It's going to fit back in the fairing. We don't have a big mess of wires. Everything looks as if it was factory. If you ever needed to take this out, let's say you bought a new bike. This fits 14 to 22. You could easily unplug all of this, take it out, put it back stock, put it in your new bike. Very, very simple. So the only thing left is the power and ground that we have on here. Is going to have to be routed back to the battery. It's going to go right back through here with the factory harness and then up and over that backbone harness. So I'm going to start routing it through this hole, and we'll catch up on the other side with the video. All right, so I've pulled our wire through the factory provision where the factory harness comes through at the inner fairing. We're going to drop this into our backbone harness, just right underneath the factory wiring. Run it on down toward the battery. Leave our excess toward the rear, and let's reinstall our backbone harness cover. Now, if you were going to do rear speakers, this would also be the time that we would run our backbone harness. We sell just as a speaker harness lead that plugs in a connector in the fairing, runs down to the back, allows you to tie into a tour pack connector or the saddlebag lid quick disconnect harnesses we have. It's all plug and play. We've got several kits for that. And this particular amp, even though we're only running 2 speakers, we can run up to 8 speakers. It'll do uppers, lowers, tour pack, and 6x9s, or 2 sets of 6x9s off this single amplifier. So once you've got this, you're ready to do whatever expansion you want later to your system without having to replace the amp. So I'm going to get this cover back on. This cover just snaps back on. Just be careful that you don't let any of the factory harnessing come out the sides. All right, so cover's back on. I'm going to go ahead and put our gas tank in place. So start all your bolts. Don't tighten any of them up all the way till you have them all started. All right, now's a good time to go ahead and make sure you reinstall those rubber covers on the gas tank. All right, so we got our bolts in our gas tank. We're going to go ahead and route our vent back down through. Sometimes there's a factory zip tie that this went through, so it may have already melted off from the exhaust, and if so, put a new one on. If not, you should be able to slide it back into that original tie. Come around and do it on this side. All right. Also, everything is easier to do when you're not filming it. So you should have a little easier time with that. On the other side, we have to hook our vent back up here. It's actually a return / vent. We're going to go ahead and leave this disconnected because we're fixing to try to hook up our battery to our wiring. So we've unplugged our fuel sender. I'm going to go ahead and pop it loose here. Disconnect this other box that we have here. Take the ECM loose. And then we took these bolts out earlier when we took the gas tank bolts out. I'm going to slide the battery cover forward. And remove it. All right, so definitely going to connect the black wire to the negative side of the battery. The red is going to go to the positive side, and then you're going to put your fuse holder up in here. It is a waterproof fuse holder. All right, let's put our cover back on our battery. Put our bolts back in place. ECM in, put all these connectors back where they were. And plug your gas tank back in. Also remember to plug in your quick disconnect fuel line. Same as removal, just slide the chrome sleeve upward, stick the fuel line in, let go of that and let it snap, make sure that it's all the way tight. So at this point, we just have to put our seat back on, reinstall our fairing and our headlight, and we'll be ready to listen to it. So let's grab the seat and get it on, then we'll go back up to the headlight. All right, let's get our headlight in. All right, so don't forget to plug your headlight back in. We're going to route this factory wiring back on top of the headlight where it was when we started. On each side of your headlight, there's some little plastic pins you're going to line up with these side vents. And then let's start our bolts back in place. So 2 on the top, 2 on the bottom. All right. So earlier I spoke about the backbone harness that runs to the back for rear speakers. It's this black 4-pin plug. So if you buy that harness, it simply plugs in here and routes back at the same time with that power wire. On this particular bike, we're not doing the rear yet. Never know, maybe we'll do it eventually. Have another video for you. You can just tuck all this wiring back in the fairing. All right, so everything's back in place, including this monster antenna. It's the first I've seen that huge antenna before. So we're gonna go ahead and put our fairing back on. So we covered these steps in the last video, so we're gonna skip past here, and here in a minute we're gonna take a listen and see how much louder and how clear it sounds. All right, so we've got our bike back together. Our Hertz amplifier install went flawlessly. It's all plugged in, ran to the battery. Radio is now on. We're ready to let you hear our copyright-free music that we normally use. Some of the improvements you're going to get by adding an amplifier compared to not adding an amp. So in this particular amp, it's a Hertz amplifier that is so clean. There is no distortion. They actually rate the distortion on this amp at 0.02 of 1%. Most amplifier brands that you're familiar with are going to be 1%, and most of those Brazilian amps that claim these huge numbers, they can be as high as 10% in distortion. So we use Hertz because it's extremely clean. It's a 3-year warranted amplifier, and it's IPX6, one of the best that we can get. Super efficient. It's not going to need a larger battery. You're not going to have to increase the size of your voltage regulator. You're not going to have to upgrade the stator. None of that's going to matter. This thing pulls less than 20 amps of current while producing 600 watts of musical power. So we're going to start. I've got my phone connected to CarPlay wirelessly using the ZZ2 interface, and I'm going to turn on our music and let you hear how clear it is. Adding that amplifier and that extra power really makes these Hertz speakers, these SX165 Neos, come to life. That extra power is going to give you a tighter, crisper mid-bass, brighter highs, and overall a tremendous amount of extra volume. So let's get it playing and let you hear what it sounds like. As you can see, it is so loud you can barely hold a conversation. I've got a microphone right here at my neck, and I'm sure it's still hard to hear me over the audio. Very deep bass, crisp highs, sounds amazing. I'm sure our customer is going to be very, very happy. Again, if you want to order one of these packages, they're available at our website, volunteeraudio.com. Completely plug and play, gain set, easy to install. You just saw it happen. We also offer the same package for a Street Glide. Only difference, instead of the Road Glide bracket, it's going to Velcro right on top of the stock radio, right on top of that plate where the Rockford or Boom audio amps would go. So just like the factory installs would be. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it gave you the confidence to tackle a project like this on your own bike. I hope that, well, if you have any other questions, comments, if there's anything else you need from us, definitely reach out to us. We're going to get the most out of your radio, the most out of your amplifier, and we're going to save you a lot of money allowing you to do it yourself. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe to the channel. Please watch our other videos. Like it and comment any other questions. If there's any other videos you want, post that up as well, and we'll do our best to make sure that happens. Thank you for watching, and God bless you.